And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 4, episode 22. And we are knee deep into the season. We are at the holiday season, and it's time to talk to some of the players. It's time to go into the player segment of the QCast. And everyone's going to call me a bandwagon guy because I've got a star player from a team that just won the game of the week. But Adam Brazel of Hampden-Sydney, will you confirm that I booked you on the QCast 2 games ago? Tell the people that before I get called a bandwagon guy. Adam, welcome, but please tell the people that first.
Yeah, this is true. We planned this out after Mr. Quillman decided to put us as a 10-point underdog at Randolph-Macon. So a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that is on my list. By the way, my prep sheet. One of my topics is Q lines, and let's just get that out of the way. Adam, the Tigers were not happy with the Q line for the game at Randolph-Macon. I don't think it was 10. I think the Yellow Jackets were a 7-point favorite, not 10. But talk about from a player's perspective how a bad line from a bad sports book can fire up a team. Go ahead, let's hear about that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it can motivate us, and we can pretend that we don't see what people say on Twitter, but we do. And our team is one that talks about it and acknowledges it, but we don't let it cloud our vision. But we do take note of it, and we like to be challenged and we like to be doubted. And so it's always just a fun little extra motivation. Maybe helps us go a little bit. So
it's funny how I never hear about a bad line before the game starts, but the second the game ends and there has been a bad line, it's funny how many mentions and notes that I get. And some of those were coming from Tiger Nation. And I appreciated that. And that is the genesis of this wonderful interview today. But in all seriousness, folks, we have Adam Brazel. It's not Brazil, by the way. It's Adam Brazel. And I asked if he was really 5'10". We know that he's a senior. We know that he's a guard. I asked, hey, are you 5'10"? And he says 5'9 3/4. So I have a 5'9 3/4 senior guard, a superstar player, a point guard, a floor general. Adam, when did you know that the QCast might come calling? I mean, was it your sophomore year, your junior year? At what point did you think that this dream could become a reality?
Well, I never thought it was going to be a reality. I didn't think this was going to be a thing. I thought, up until the moment where you DM me on Twitter saying good game after the game against Macon, that was when I was like, oh man, he knows who I am. I didn't know you knew who I was. So I was like, oh, okay, he knows who I am. And then you were like, would you maybe want to join the QCast? I was like, absolutely. So it was just a simple, like, flip the switch. I didn't know you knew who I was. Not only did you know who I was, but you wanted to talk to me. So I was like, okay, here we go. Reality.
I was very excited to talk to you, and especially after creating a bad line. Folks, Adam Brazel is in Asheville, North Carolina. We're going to talk about Asheville. He's from Mooresville, North Carolina. So the family's moved. So let's get into that. So I know where Asheville is. How close is Mooresville to Asheville? Let's cover that first.
That's about 2 hours. So Mooresville is like 30 miles north of Charlotte. And then Asheville is Western North Carolina. So about 2 hours west of Mooresville. But I grew up my whole life, born and raised Mooresville, Davidson area, Lake Norman.
Gotcha. In Asheville, so where you are right now, how far to campus from there? Like how far drive we talking back to Hampden-Sydney?
4 hours.
Okay, 4 hour drive. I got it. I like to get into the geography here in the QCast. And well, before we got on the air, you talked about, like, I was like, do your parents know you're coming on a podcast with some random dude? Like, talk about that conversation with your mom earlier this evening about the QCast, please.
Yeah, I was like, my mom asked me to do something at like 10, and I was like, oh, just so you know, I'm going on a podcast tonight with a big D3 hoops guy at 9. And she's like, D3 hoops guy? And I was like, yeah, he's like a journalist, kind of like a hoops head. He kind of just advocated for D3 hoops. And she was like, okay. I was like, well, I mean, he's pretty well known, like, within the community, Mom. Like, this is kind of like a cool deal. And she was like, okay, yeah, that should be fun. And I was like, yeah, thanks, Mom. So I think she's watching a Christmas movie right now, but I'm in my room doing this.
So she's maybe watching like a Hallmark thing. You're on the QCast. Did she say, like, he's not like showing up to the house in some kind of van or something, right? This is an internet thing. I assume she was maybe worried for a little bit about this.
I think she understood that it was on Zoom or something like that, and yeah, she didn't quite understand like why me, why now though. She was a little bit confused for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this. I appreciate your mom being supportive of you being on a podcast tonight. And boy, Adam, we need to talk about what's going on with this team of yours because now earlier this year, I went out on a limb and voted for Hampden-Sydney to be number one. Do you remember that ballot? It seems like you're in tune with something. Do you remember me putting your team number one?
I do recall. Yep.
Okay. So then we have the game at Guilford, which was a tough game going. I mean, look, Guilford, then I had Guilford number one, by the way, after that. So to me, that wasn't it wasn't an upset in any way. It was just a tough road game in the league. They played great. Let's talk about that game first. Is Guilford is a phenomenal team. I thought they played really well in that game. Talk a little bit about the loss at Guilford, and then we'll get into some more positive moments.
Yeah, I think you just have to give a lot of credit to Guilford. They're an experienced team, really, really well coached. They got a lot of guys. They're really led by two fifth-year guys in Birch and Dearman.
Yeah.
And, those guys, they really understand how to win in the ODAC. And we went in there and, they punked us on the glass. I think that was the main reason we lost. They just were more physical than us. And that's our game. We want to be the more physical team. And so, anytime a team comes into a game and they're more gritty and they're more physical than us, then, you got a chance to beat us. But, so we decided from then on out, we can never be the team that gets, out physical or out gritted or out toughed. So we got to be the tougher team at all times. And it's all about defense and rebounding with this team, I feel like. So they out defended and out rebounded us.
One of the great things about having the players on the QCast is they use better verbs, instead of like they beat us on the glass. So they punked you on the glass. I assume that means that they out rebounded you. For the older QCast listeners, could you confirm that they out rebounded you in that game?
They did. I think it was by, oh man, I remember they had 17 O boards and we had 6. And I think they got us by 10 plus on the glass. So.
And on the QCast leading up to that episode, Coach Kimbrough and Coach Palambro, they both predicted that the winner of the Battle of the Boards would win that basketball game, and that turned out to be pretty prophetic, right? I mean, that's what happened. That the team that punked the other on the boards won that basketball game, so they both ended up being correct. That's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would say that it really just came down to the rebound, because you get the rebound on offense and you get another chance. Whereas if if you're playing offense and you don't get the O board and you miss the shot, then the basket starts to shrink. And so the basket was shrinking for us, but for them, it was just growing and getting bigger and bigger. And, everyone was hitting shots for them as a result of that. It wasn't luck. It wasn't,
right.
Like we played bad defense. So it's like, they're going to make shots. They're really good college players.
Great points about the basket shrinking. We always, random podcasters and random Twitter people always talk about like, how it's harder to score when you start getting down. But I think you're saying that that's a pretty legit thing. Like when you get down on the road like that, it's easier to play from ahead. Is that fair to say? Like it's easier to shoot when you're ahead. Tougher. The basket gets smaller and smaller as the situation gets tougher. Talk about that a little bit from a player's perspective.
Yeah, actually, now that I think back on the game a little bit, we did put up 71 on Guilford, and they're one of the best defenses in the country.
Yeah.
So really, it's just about our defense more than anything. But it absolutely is critical to like shoot with confidence, and sometimes maybe you shoot with more confidence when your team's winning and other guys are making shots. It's it's a psychological thing. You see the ball go in the basket for anybody on your team, and you start to feel like the next shot could be you, and then the whole team plays with a different energy. The energy is real too. They
right.
have better energy that game as well.
Is that one end of the court, the one on the left on the stream, is it as dark as it looks like? It seems like there's no lighting whatsoever over there. And Coach Kimbrough mentioned the lighting. Like it really looks like some kind of lost, forgotten land over there to the left. Can you talk about what's going on over there?
Yeah, I won't lie to you. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but it does feel like two different games when you're playing on the first end, on the first half and the second half goal. it's just a little different. It's definitely home court advantage because those guys are used to it, practicing there every day. But no excuses. They got it. They beat us. So
And they're a great team. And we're going to talk
yeah,
about the ODAC and how unbelievable it is. Um, I promise we talk about fun stuff. And Adam, the first game of the year had so much anticipation. You guys have played a few games now that feel like they've been like the game of the week in Division 3, coming right out of the gates. You knew all summer, all offseason, you knew that you were playing Christopher Newport, the defending champs, in the first game of the year. What was the build up to that like internally, and talk through a little bit of like how that you won the game by what, like 21 points. Talk about like anticipation, talk about that game.
yeah. Losing to them in the second round last year left a really sour taste in our mouth because we lost in a similar way that we lost to Guilford this year, where it was like they punked us on the glass bad. And we were driving in and taking Hope layups over Barber because he's a big presence down there, shot blocker. And so we were, not playing like our game. We were a little bit scared, even like the way that we were passive. We weren't playing with our typical confidence. And so, it left a sour taste in our mouth that we went out to them in a way that was, not cowardly, but we felt like we had more to give. And we felt like there was more in our control that we could have done. And so all summer we just, I think guys just worked and, were together with the mentality that we would eventually have to, get it back. And it wouldn't be by just talent or shot making. It would be by being the grittier team, which is something we harp on all the time.
Yeah, an unbelievable year last year. I mean, you're 22-7. You were 14-2 in the league. You get in, you beat Emory in the first round on Friday night, and then that game you mentioned against Christopher Newport, you lose that one. They go on to win the championship, and you come out of that thing with this huge win on the first night of the season, basically your first game. Coming out of that thing, was there a sense of like, look, we could be a really special team, or what was the feeling when the buzzer sounded against Christopher Newport that night?
Yeah, I think we definitely understood that we could be a special team even before that game, but
Sure.
especially after. I mean, what could really be better than beating the number one team on your home court in front of like a sold out crowd? I mean,
Yeah.
we were thinking to ourselves, I guess, a little bit like, how does it get better from here? And it's like, well, the only answer is that we have to get better each day. We're not worried about the results necessarily. Like that's not what we're worried about. We're worried about the process. And so we understood that there were things to correct and things to improve on
Sure.
despite a huge win. And so we had to acknowledge that we did have a huge win and we are in fact one of the best teams in the country, but we also had to acknowledge that there's so much room for us to grow. And then we got back to work the next day.
You also had a big win against Widener, and they've turned out to be a fantastic team. One of the best teams in the country. You beat them 72-63. Going into that game, I know you guys knew all about how good they were. They had a good year last year. Talk about what the Widener win meant to your team.
Yeah, I think it was a rare case where we were playing a team that was as experienced and as old as us.
Yeah.
So with that, and as talented as well, I'll say that they're deep. They got guys off the bench that would start anywhere else in the country.
Yep.
And so, they've got experienced guys. They also play together really well. And so in addition to their talent, experience, and their chemistry, it's like they play with like a supreme confidence as well. And so
Sure.
they're a really tough team. And I think, despite them not having like a number by their name, they weren't ranked at the time. We understood that team would end up being, very dangerous and eventually, probably, I think they'll probably take care of their conference and make it to the NCAA tournament. So we understood that was a big win for us at the time, even if it wasn't necessarily a ranked win at the time.
Just kind of a little side note here. You mentioned, like they're almost as old as you guys, or older than you guys. But in this era of the fifth year, talk about just the advantages of being, old or experienced, or having some fifth year guys. It seems like that's become a big thing for teams. Just talk about that a little bit from your experience on both your team and then teams you face.
Yeah, I feel like, so we have three captains: Miles Harris, fifth year; Josiah Hardy, senior, and then myself. But it feels like the work that we have to do as captains is really delegated out to, the 9 seniors plus fifth years that we have in practice. And it feels like we just have a really good grip on the team.
Right.
And guys aren't afraid to hold each other accountable, which is that's a big thing with young teams, is that guys don't know how to be held accountable and how to hold each other accountable. And, so that understanding that we're going to hold each other accountable and be held accountable is big. And that definitely applies with experience. But then also, nobody's anxious, maybe like they were when they were younger. Everybody kind of understands that, like what we have to do to win. There's an understanding of what we have to do to win. And there's a next play. There's a mentality too. We talk about like a next play speed. There's a real maturity to our team on the court where, I'll just give an example of myself. Like I'll turn it over like a really stupid pass, and immediately like a teammate will dap me up, high five me, and be like, "Hey, next play." And I'm like, "Okay, next play." So it's just like, it's like you just completely forget about the play that just happened, and it's good or bad too. So it could be somebody on our team gets a dunk, but we're not, hanging out and celebrating while the other team gets it down the course. Like we're back on defense trying to lock up. And so that next play speed we have, I think, is a huge part of our maturity, and that maturity is definitely tied with that experience.
It's great context. Yeah, it's not just the physical part of it. It's the just having been there before and being able to react to, to tough things that happen on the fly. It's great perspective from, someone that's been there. Another game. This is where we get into the bad Q line. The Q line says that Randolph-Macon at home is a 7-point favorite over the Tigers, and I watched that entire game. And you guys, you won by 9 points. It didn't feel to me like it was ever all that close from what I remember. It probably was at some point. I felt like start to finish, you guys were the better team. You made it very hard on them to score. They scored 52 points. That's a great program, and that's a team that has been great for many years now. What was it like to win at Randolph-Macon? That must have been another big one for you guys.
Yeah, that one tasted sweet. It was the first time they had lost a conference game, I believe, in the 2020s.
Wow.
It was the first time we'd beaten them since 2017. First time we'd won at Macon since 2013. And so like nobody on our roster had ever beaten Randolph-Macon. So we wanted it really, really bad. And yeah, when we went in there, we knew we could. And it was just a matter of, like I talked about earlier, our maturity and our experience. Are we going to do what we know we can and what we know we need to do in order to walk out with a win? And like you said, that is a phenomenal program. So I'm not even mad at you for having the Q line favoring them, because it's like we hadn't beaten them, like I just said, in 6 years. And so it's like, what can you really do with that if a team hasn't beaten a team in 12 tries? And, obviously Coach Merkel at the helm there, great coach. And, they got some talented guys in, Bongay and Jabril and Coble. And, so they got a veteran squad that, they have guys in that team that won a national championship and started on a national championship team. And so we understood that it wasn't going to be this thing where we walk in and we walk out with a win. It was going to be a gritty battle, and it was. And fortunately we walked out, on top.
Yeah. You've won a lot of games, but to me, that one said as much as any of these games, because it was at their place. They had the mystique around them. They had the streak. They're a great program, and to go into their place and win, to me, that was one of the, like, the moments where it's like, these guys are really, really good. You play Swarthmore, and there's a game that wasn't that close. So you win that game by 21 points. Swarthmore's a team that coming into the year was in the preseason top 25. They're a great program. We're talking about another kind of Final Four type team from years past. The Swarthmore game seemed like everything was clicking there. It seemed like on both ends of the floor, you guys were really in sync. Talk about the win over Swarthmore.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I think we jumped on them early and set the tone physically. We knew they were a physical team. Caprice down low, and then D'Angelo on the wing. So they have talented guys, experienced guys. Went to the Final Four last year.
Yeah.
Really well coached, really fundamental team, really fundamentally sound. And so we knew we'd have to win the rebounding battle. and we knew we'd have to try to get it out of their best players' hands. And we did that, and then we kind of pushed and transitioned a little bit, and we let our defense fuel our offense. And in the second half, they actually pulled within, I think, 6 at one point. So they made it close early, but then we actually had some guys off the bench that played really well that game. Shane Fernald, sophomore for us, came in off the bench, 7 points, 2 assists as a center. So he helped with a big run that we had. I think we probably went on maybe a 15-0 run or something similar to that, and then walked out with a 21 point win, 19-point win. So,
and then the big game earlier this week, which again was kind of the game of the week in Division III, a no-brainer. So you guys have to go to John Carroll, which kudos to both coaching staffs for making this happen. There's so many great matchups right now in Division III. And I know that, you follow the national scene, and you're aware of how many cool matchups are playing out nowadays with some of these tournaments. But coming into that game, I mean, you guys knew how highly regarded they were. What were your thoughts coming into the matchup with John Carroll?
Well, we thought and still do think that they're an extremely talented team. They got guys that are super skilled, Chacon, Frazier, just to name a couple. And, we knew that we'd have to make it hard on the guys. And we knew that they love possessions, and they love to get out and run in transition.
Right.
And so one of our focuses, hey, try to stop their transition. But that's not even a secret. That's, when a team is good at transition, you try to stop their transition. And so, we walked away from that game thinking, okay, this team's legit, and they're an NCAA tournament team, and we might see them again. That's what we walked away thinking, I think. But the game overall was just an absolute blast, to be honest. We had a really good time. In the first half, they jumped out to a 9-point lead, 27-18, and then we kind of roared back and took the lead before half, and then eventually we were up, I think, like 18 with like 10 minutes in the second half left. And that was a really, really fun game.
Yeah, you guys were at 3 at the half after being down, as you mentioned. You win the second half 51-36. You had 21 points in that game. You guys knew already going into that game that you were a great team. Had you lost, you would have known you were a great team. But boy, walking out of the gym and getting back on the bus after the John Carroll game, I mean, that had to feel like a pretty special win. What was that like in terms of just the team environment there after that win?
Yeah, it was fun because it's the third time we've beaten a number one team in the last year and 2 weeks or so. And so,
Sure.
It's like we continue to prove ourselves right about who we are, and that's really exciting. And it was fun because we've got a lot of freshmen on this team who haven't, traveled with the team and gone into like a dangerous environment like John Carroll, unfamiliar territory for all of us. But I think really the freshmen brought great energy on the bench for the most part, and they were able to be able to provide energy that a crowd typically would for us. And, we were able to just be grittier than them. I'll always come back to that, but we were able to be grittier, I think.
Yeah, and that describes your team really well. I mean, you guys are a fairly like hard-nosed, blue-collar, defensive-oriented team. Gritty's a great word. Let's go back here for a second. I think people would find this interesting, Adam. How did you get to Hampden-Sydney? So you're a kid playing high school basketball in Mooresville, North Carolina. I assume that you were a really good, highly recruited kid. But I don't know all that for sure. Talk to us about like your senior year of high school and what kind of player you were and what colleges were knocking on your door.
So I graduated from Davidson Day School, which is in Davidson, North Carolina, like a mile away from Davidson College. And we had a really, really talented squad. So on that team, we had Bryce Baker, who plays at Old Dominion. We had Jackson Threadgill, who plays at UNC Charlotte. CJ Huntley, who plays at App State.
Wow.
Appalachian State. And then we had Will Coble, who plays at Randolph-Macon. And that was a group of guys, in addition to some guys off the bench as well that were a little younger. But we had a group of guys that had played AAU together and travel ball together for since third grade for a few of us, and
Wow.
since seventh grade for the others. And so we knew each other really well, had great chemistry. But certainly Jackson and CJ were the ones that were more highly recruited, as they're like 6'7" and 6'10", just really, really talented basketball
Sure.
players. But Will and I, we got recruited by some similar schools. Randolph-Macon reached out to both of us. I wasn't super highly recruited. I had preferred walk-on opportunities at Division I's, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to go somewhere where I was wanted. And the coaching staff at Hampden-Sydney at the time, led by Coach Kimbrough, Coach Gibson, still there, but also Coach Eco, Coach Newton. And those guys, what meant the most to me was when they came to a game in downtown or, near Charlotte on a Wednesday in January. And so that really, that struck me, because I knew that they were going through their own season right now, and it was, I think it was like a Thursday, in a middle of the week game is really impressive that you drove down 3.5,
Right.
4 hours to watch me play. And so I figured out that they really, really wanted me. And when I took my visit, I really enjoyed it. But it was really the coaching staff that was the main pull, I'd say. And yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up in Hampden-Sydney.
There's a lot of high school seniors out there right now that are getting recruited at various levels, just kind of like you were. What advice do you have for those young men out there that are trying to sort out recruiting processes? And is there any stuff that you learned that you'd like to pass along to people about kind of how to navigate that whole process?
I would just say go where you're wanted. I think that's what means the most at the end of the day. Go where you feel like a real connection with the coach, the coaching staff. Go tour multiple schools. I feel like though I ended up in the perfect spot for me, I missed the mark on actually how to do the recruiting process. I was pretty maybe standoffish a little. I just didn't really understand. I was maybe nervous to go to college. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, something about it just pushed me or rubbed me the wrong way. And so I didn't take as many visits as I should have. Although, again, I ended up in the perfect place. But, for those getting recruited right now, I'd say you got to go visit, go meet the team, go hang out with the team, watch a practice, understand what it takes to play Division III basketball, and go where you're wanted, and make sure that you connect with the coaches and you're not just committing to a place for recognition or clout or popularity.
Right.
Go where you'll be happy.
And now looking back on things, sitting here, as a senior on a great team, we always have fun with that YD3 hashtag, and I talk about that a lot here on this podcast. But looking back on the experience, how would you summarize like what Division III basketball is? Because as you and I both know, not everyone gets it. Some people that don't know anything about it think it's like intramurals or something. But how would you describe what Division III basketball is?
I would just describe it as a like an extreme commitment to a program and a community, in which you're dedicated to growing yourself and growing relationships. But it really is a beautiful thing, because you don't just have basketball 24/7. There is free time. Like the fact that I'm home right now, is it the 21st right now? 22nd, 21st?
It's the 21st. That's why my
Yeah.
watch says 21st.
Yeah. So it's the 21st and I'm home right now. And, other guys that play D1, D2 are probably not home right now. And in the summers we get, you get summers off essentially, but obviously you're working out throughout the summer, but you're not at school the entire summer most times. And so there's beauty in being able to find other things outside of basketball, because although like we love basketball and basketball is important to us and you want to, dedicate what you have to it, there is more to life than basketball. And understanding that is really a huge part of becoming like the person that, you're meant to become. And some people play 16 years in the NBA and then get out of the NBA and don't realize what their other passions are in life. And so Division III
Right.
gives you a good opportunity to realize that when you're still young.
Yeah, really well said. The perspective is probably much greater at this level. The league, Adam, is really incredible. Like when you think of the ODAC's always been great, but I think I said this to Coach Kimbrough and Coach Palumbo earlier this year. It's probably as good as it has ever been. And if you look at the standings right now, Shenandoah's 3-0, Virginia Wesleyan's 3-1, Ferrum's 3-1, Bridgewater's 3-1, Lynchburg's 3-1, Guilford's 2-1. Hampden-Sydney, which is either going to be ranked 1 or 2 at the next poll, is 2-1. So when you look down the standings, I think you guys might be in about 8th place or something. Randolph-Macon's 2-1. Washington and Lee's 1-1. I would say that all those teams I just listed, I would say are legit contenders for the title at this very moment. Just talk about the ODAC and how ridiculously good it has been and it is this year.
Yeah, it's a really deep league. I feel like oftentimes, at least in the past, it's been overlooked. I think now it's getting probably the recognition it deserves. But you started with Shenandoah. That's a team that has historically been towards the bottom of our league, and they've gotten a new coach. They brought in some guys, and they have a squad, and they are completely legit. And so that's a really, really talented squad that we're going to have to deal with, that everybody else in the ODAC is going to have to deal with. And then obviously you mentioned Randolph-Macon and Guilford. Those teams, similar in the way that they're competing for league title year after year. You got, Washington and Lee, like you said, led by, DeCibio, who averages like 27 a game,
right?
Just an absolute monster. So we got to, you got to figure out a way to stop him. Virginia Wesleyan, who just beat CNU last week for the second time in a row. I mean, we're talking about a team that, is super athletic, super skilled, super confident, and really well coached. So, yeah. I mean, we're talking about, and they lock up too. I think somebody tweeted that they held a team to 16 points in the first half one time this year. I mean, that's insane, really. But, and I could go on. I probably missed a few teams, but yeah, the ODAC's really deep. And I think our team's really excited for the challenge of going through that entire schedule, knowing that, not a single game that we play this year in the ODAC is going to be like a guaranteed win. We can't just show up.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, when you're in a league like that and you start going on the road, and not even the home games, but you start going on the road to teams from the quote, the bottom of the standings, there are no gimmies at all in the ODAC this year. You're on a break at this point. Your next game is December 30th against Salisbury at home. So talk about like how do you stay in shape during the break like this? I know these are periods of time where coaches worry a lot about like guys being ready for that game on the 30th. How do you and your teammates make sure that you stay locked in, stay in shape, stay ready to play that game against Salisbury?
Yeah, we've got a big group chat going between all the coaches, managers, and players, in which we keep each other updated on our lives day to day. Like what'd you do workout wise today? What'd you do, mentally today, spiritually? It could be really anything. And so, I'm reading a book called Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson right now. And it's a phenomenal book about, it kind of plays into next play speed a little bit, what I was talking about earlier, but really the mental aspects of the game. And so that's helping me mentally and spiritually every day when I read it, but I'm almost done with it. So I might have to do something else, but I just go to the Y and I shoot, and I rebound for myself, and I find peace in just being in the gym. Like I know almost everybody else on my team does. And, we're in the weight room lifting because we understand how important that is to our health. But really, there's just a trust built within our team. I think we know that, even if you have a week away from school and a week away from structure, you're still getting better and you're still putting in work, because we have goals that are much bigger than just going 9-1 going into Christmas break.
I can see a new hashtag like D3 reads right now. D3 reads seems pretty good to me.
Huge.
That wouldn't that be huge? Like you read Sacred Hoops, we do a little thing about it. Your next book, we get on D3 reads on the hashtag. That the wheels are turning.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball influences growing up. Who were the guys that you loved the most in terms of whether they were college guys or NBA guys? Like who were your influences?
This guy right here, Stephen Curry. Like I said, I grew up in the Davidson area. So when I was about 6, 7, 8 years old, he was having his run at Davidson from 06 to 09. And so I'll never forget the first time I met him. I was actually at a Davidson college football game, which is FCS. So, but he was sitting with his dad, Dell, and my dad was like, "Hey, this is Dell Curry, Adam. Like, meet him." We were meeting Dell at the time, which is funny to look back and think about. But so I grew up watching Steph, went to like every Davidson game for 3 or 4 years. And
That's
then,
cool.
just he was my main inspiration. I'd say Steve Nash, another guy that I absolutely study all the time. Those two guys probably lead the charge for me, but I'm also, extremely motivated by Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Those are kind of my guys as well. I'm always reading Mamba Mentality. Maybe we could add that to D3 reads as well.
Right.
And I'm watching The Last Dance. So,
well, I would say Steve Nash. I see a lot of your game in Steve Nash's game. That's for sure. Steph Curry, what do you think? Best pure shooter of all time? What do you think about that?
Particularly close. I would throw him in some outrageous arguments. Honestly, I like to consider myself something of a basketball historian, but I could make an argument for him being a top 5 player of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he's changed the game. I think he is the best shooter of all time. I mean, I grew up in what I think was the best era of the NBA, which was the 80s. Mm-hmm. And to me, like Larry Bird, pure shooter, but I mean, I think Steph is, I think he has distanced himself. That's my opinion. Where do you stand on Kobe versus LeBron versus MJ? Where do you stand on that debate?
I think there's so many different ways that you can evaluate them. It all depends on your criteria. I think, I'm not mad at any order that you want to put between the three of them. If you had to ask me, I'd probably go MJ, LeBron, Kobe. But I think that all three of those guys belong in the top 5. And I think that, each of them were just so dominant. And you just got a feeling. I can't say it for Jordan, but I can say it for Kobe and LeBron. You just got a feeling when you watch them, when it's, it comes to be the fourth quarter, you're just like, oh, man. Same feeling you get with Tiger Woods and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. But there's just a feeling you get with those guys. And I think that's true greatness. So.
Yeah, and I'm biased. I mean, I grew up in Chicago. I was 12 years old when Michael Jordan was drafted to the Bulls. I was living in Chicago. Wow. I saw the whole thing. I was your age, somewhere around championship number 3. And, so I am very biased. But the way I always say it is like, to me, Michael Jordan never ever let you down. He didn't win every game, but he never let you down in terms of like his effort, or the way he played, or taking ownership after a loss. I just feel like there was something special about Michael Jordan. But I do understand the people that, there's a lot of people that statistically make a case for LeBron, which I totally get. Like, I totally get it. I'm biased. I'm a number 23 guy. So Adam, let's talk about the rest of the season here before we wrap this up, get some of your final thoughts. Long way to go. You're 9-1. You're 2-1 in the ODAC. I mean, we're not even to Christmas at this point. You're going to be ranked like 1 or 2. I mean, there's a bunch of people like me making decisions about their ballot. To me, I'm Calvin or Hampden-Sydney. I've watched both of you. I think you're the 2 best teams in the country. You might have the better case because of your strength of schedule. But there's so much season left. How do you approach now, starting when you come back, the Salisbury game, and kind of the second half of the season that's in front of you here?
Yeah, well, we kind of joke about like the rankings are definitely cool because it's like a testament to see, these are like kind of your peers voting on you, but it's a testament to see like how far you've come. And so, a couple of years ago we were, nowhere near being ranked, and then here we are, like in discussion to be the top team in the country according to the D3 Hoops rankings. But we joke all the time about like hanging up because we were number 2 earlier before Guilford beat us. We joked about like hanging up a number 2 in the D3 Hoops poll, whatever was November, or it was like December 3rd or something. December, yeah. We joked about hanging a banner that said that, and so the guys have fun with it. But I just think that this team really isn't distracted by much, and we've shown that early on. But it's just going to be about understanding that the season is going to be long, it's going to be grueling, it's going to be hard. But as long as we're together, And as long as we keep on keeping on, and so we just got to compete, and we got to come in every day trying to get better, trying to be, the best version of ourselves each day. And I think when you focus on that, the rest will take care of itself. I really believe that.
Do you get a chance to pay attention at all? I wouldn't assume that you do, but you're so busy with school and with your own team and stuff. But do you ever get a chance to pay attention to Division III games in other parts of the country and have a sense for like what else is out there? Or is that just too busy to follow along?
Yeah, I follow along a little bit. I watched NYU at Redlands a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I watched Macon, Mary Wash, because that was the week that Macon was going to play us. So I was like, okay, let's get a feel about them. I haven't gotten a chance to watch, some of the teams I probably should be watching, like Calvin and those other teams that are ranked really high. But yeah, I should probably watch more D3 hoops than I do. But, studying like our film and just playing D3 hoops alone kind of is, I guess, that's an excuse for that.
Yeah, I would say that you've got a good excuse for not watching as many streams as I'm watching. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We got to make sure that you're tuning in sometimes to the D3 Datacast. Matt and Zach Snyder, they're pumping out content that you need to be checking out on occasion. You got these books, Mamba Mentality, Sacred Hoops. We got D3 Reads. So make sure to tune into the Snyders. We got Dave McHugh, the OG on Hoopsville. There's a lot of good content out there, Adam. So make sure that you're mixing in your D3 stuff along with your books. Is that a fair request of me moving forward?
That's absolutely fair. I am tuned in to the Snyder Cast and to D3 Hoops, McHughesville. So I'm usually tuned into those things, but
okay,
especially when you know somebody that's on them.
That's fair. That's great to hear. Well, I tell you what, Adam, like this has been awesome. I think you're an unbelievable representative of Hampden-Sydney College and your basketball team. I appreciate your mom being okay with you being on a podcast with this random guy. Your team is unbelievable. You guys play the right way. You're well coached. You play defense incredibly, and you just got a bunch of hoopers, man. You just have a bunch of hoopers. And so I really appreciate you coming on the QCast today, but let me kick it to you to close this out. There's people, you got teammates tuning in here. You got coaches tuning in. We got D3 Nation tuning in. Close us out, Adam Brazel. Tell people what you want to tell them here in the closing thoughts on the QCast today.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you. I was like, can I shout my guys out real quick? So
please.
Yeah, obviously we believe Coach Kimbrough, not just one of the best coaches in the country, but I think he's one of the best competitors in the country. And he kind of is the tip of the spear for us. And so he's fearless. We're all fearless. And, Coach Gibson and Coach Long right below him, two great recruiters, two just like superstar guys, really. And then, we got Davidson Hubbard. He had 31 on John Carroll the other day. He's a phenomenal player, kind of a 6'5" forward for us, kind of plays the 5 for us, but really can really step out and shoot it. Not sure what he's shooting this year from 3, but he's shooting it really, really well.
Shooting 508 from the field. He's averaging 16 and 8. I can tell you that. Those are pretty good numbers, aren't they?
16 and 8. Yeah. 16 and 8 on good splits. So that kid's a heck of a player. And we're a defensive minded team. We've got what I believe probably like 5 of the best defenders in the country. If I were to just, throw it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen Ryan Clements on the ball. You've seen Chase Turner. You've seen Alex Elliott, Josiah Hardy, and then Miles Harris protects the rim pretty well. I think he's probably leading our team in blocks this year.
Right.
And with those guys holding stuff down for us on defense, we're really, really solid. And those guys can do more than just that too. That's the best part about it. I think Alex Elliott's shooting 56% from 3 right now. And I wouldn't even say that I wouldn't say that Alex Davidson or myself is the best shooter on the team. I'd actually say it's Eamon McGowan. And we haven't seen enough of him yet this year. We're going to see more of him, but I would argue he has a case for being the best shooter in the country. And so, get ready, D3 Hoops. Sorry, I just gave out the scouting report on Eamon, but you watch any game, you'll be able to tell. And we're not just a team with a bunch of old guys either. We've got, like I said, Eamon's a junior, and we got Nick Shryock, who's a junior as well.
Right.
He's coming back from injury right now, but he's a really, really strong point guard for us. He's going to be really solid for us. And then we got Shane Fernald, kind of a 6'7" point center, if you will. I mean, he was breaking the press against John Carroll the other day, basically single-handedly. And he's the future of the program for us. So he's going to be huge. And we got DJ Wright, who's currently injured right now, but man, if there's a way to make an impact on a game without actually playing in it, I mean, he's impact 101. And he pulled me aside during the John Carroll game after I had a push off offensive foul call. He said, "Man, you can't let them speed you up. You're the best point guard in the country." Like, pulled me aside, motivate me. And I get back out there, and thanks to him, I'm able to do my thing. And so that's what we talk about with that experience, maturity, and chemistry. But so DJ Wright, he's huge for us. Praying for a recovery for him. And then we got Sean Hodge, who's kind of a jack of all trades for us, does whatever he needs to do. He can be scout. He can get in there and play minutes, rough somebody up. But, and he controls the energy on the bench as well. And then we've got, an array of freshmen that I mentioned earlier that bring tons of energy. And we've got some sophomores too that are quietly working their way up in the ranks. And so really this program is just, we're really blessed and we're really happy with where we are, but we're nowhere near satisfied.
Probably the best close of the QCast ever right there. Detailed shout outs for the Hampden-Sydney Tigers by Adam Brazel, who is a 5'9 3/4 senior guard on the 9-1, potentially about to be #1 Tigers. We will see when that ballot comes out right after the new year. It's going to be a little while still. It's going to be more than a week before we see that. But Adam, I'll say this, my friend, is every great team I've ever seen in following Division III for, I don't know, what am I on, 32, 34 years. But every great team has had great leaders. And you, my friend, are a great leader. You're a great player, but you're a great leader. And people who tune into the QCast today will be very clear why the Tigers are having such a good season with you and the rest of the cast. So we will stay in touch, my friend. I'll be rooting for you. I'll be in Fort Wayne for sure. And I'd love to see you find a way to get there with the team. Would love to see you play in person. And I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to do this on your break. I know how busy you are and stuff going on your break. So we'll be following along, my friend. This has really been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. And I sure hope that someone on our team gets to take a selfie with you after in Fort Wayne on March 18th.
Well, look, if I come looking for you in Fort Wayne for a selfie after the buzzer on the final night of the year, it means that something really good has just happened to you, my friend. There's a history with that, right?
Yep.
Adam Brazel, you're awesome, man. This is great. Again, a senior guard, Hampden-Sydney, having an amazing season. The team is great. Check them out, folks. Adam, thank you, and we'll see you real soon.
Thank you very much. See you, Bob.
Thanks, bud.